Your browser history from 3 years ago looks exactly like your browser history from yesterday. Same scattered tabs, same half-finished courses, same bookmarked articles you're definitely going to read later. You've been calling this distraction for so long you actually believe it. Here's what nobody told you: the feeling you've been fighting, that's not the disease. That's your operating system trying to boot up in a world that only recognizes one program at a time. Let me show you something. Right now, this second, how many things are you sort of interested in? Don't count. Just notice the number that appears. 5, 7, 12. Your parents had 2, maybe 3 if they were wild. You think something broke inside you, like your attention span shattered, and now you can't focus on the real work. But here's the thing. What if nothing broke? What if something upbraided and the world just hasn't noticed yet? I'm going to tell you about the M-shaped person, not because it's a nice theory, because you already are one, and you've been apologizing for it your entire adult life. The old deal was simple. Pick one thing, go deep, become the yo expert, retire with a gold watch and a sense of meaning. T-shaped, one vertical line going down into expertise. Made perfect sense when the world changed every 30 years. Your world changes every 30 days. So your brain did what brains do. It adapted. It started building multiple deep channels instead of one. You're not shallow. You're distributed. Most people see your scattered interests and think unfocused, undisciplined, can't commit. They're measuring you with a ruler designed for a different shape. Watch what happens when you try to fix yourself. You pick one interest. You commit. You ignore the others. 3 weeks later, you're dead inside and you don't know why, because you tried to run distributed software on a single core processor. The exhaustion you feel, that's not from having too many interests. That's from pretending you only have one. Your body knows. It's been trying to tell you. Notice right now, when someone asks what you do, does your chest tighten slightly? Because you have to pick one answer, one identity, one acceptable narrative, and whichever one you pick, 5 other true things about you just got erased. That tightness, that's the cost of compression. You're trying to fit multi-dimensional experience into a single-line job description. Here's where it gets interesting. The M-shaped person has multiple peaks, multiple areas of genuine depth. Not hobbies, not side projects, actual competence across domains that aren't supposed to connect. You know things about design and microbiology and medieval history and cryptocurrency and sourdough starter, and nobody knows what to do with you, including you, because there's no job listing for that. No career path. No mentor who looks like your skill set. So you keep trying to sand yourself down into a recognizable shape. Stop. The future doesn't need more specialists. It's drowning in specialists. You can't talk to each other. The future needs translators, bridge builders, people who can stand in 3 different domains simultaneously and spot the pattern nobody else sees. That's you. You've been thinking your scattered interests are a bug in your personality. They're not a bug. They're an evolutionary response to complexity. The world got complicated, you got complicated back. Simple as that. Now here's the part that's going to sound strange until you check it against your own experience. Your multiple interests aren't random. They feel random because you've never mapped them. But if you actually really look at what captures your attention, you'll find threads, themes, a coherent shape you never noticed because you were too busy being ashamed of the shape. Go ahead. Think about your last 5 obsessions, not the ones you told people about. The real ones. What connects them? There's always something. Some underlying question you're circling without realizing it. Some central tension your mind keeps approaching from different angles. You thought you were being flaky. You were actually being thorough, checking the same problem from multiple vantage points before committing to a solution. Most people skip that step. They take the first answer that sounds good and call it expertise. You don't trust first answers. You can't. You've seen too many domains to believe anything is simple. That makes you slower, more hesitant, less confident in public. It also makes you write more often. But nobody's keeping score on that. The compression is everywhere once you start noticing it. LinkedIn wants one headline. Parties want one interesting fact. Your relatives want one answer to what are you up to. And you're standing there with 7 true answers, knowing that if you say all 7 you'll sound insane. So you pick one, whichever feels most acceptable that day. And then you go home and feel like a fraud, not because you lied, because you told 1/7 of the truth and called it the whole thing. Here's what the M-shaped person discovers eventually. You can't succeed by subtraction. You can't cut away the extra interests and become focused. Every time you try, you lose the thing that makes you valuable. Your value isn't in any single peak. It's in the valley between them. The connections. The unexpected synthesis. The designer who understands statistics doesn't just make pretty charts. They make charts that actually mean something. The programmer who studied philosophy doesn't just write code. They write code that matches how humans actually think. The marketer who knows psychology and economics and rhetoric isn't just persuasive. They're persuasive in ways that hold up under scrutiny. These aren't accidental combinations, they're strategic depth, but you have to stop apologizing for them first. Right now, this moment, what would you be learning if you weren't worried about staying focused? That thing. That's not a distraction. That's your brain trying to complete the pattern. Your instinct knows what connects even when your conscious mind doesn't. The M-shaped future is already here, by the way. Look at who's actually solving problems that matter. Not the specialists. They're still arguing about definitions. The solutions are coming from people who wandered in from 3 different fields, spotted something nobody else could see, and built a bridge. Every major platform you use was built by someone who combined things that weren't supposed to go together. Every significant insight you've encountered came from someone who knew enough about 2 different domains to spot the gap between them. The world runs on translation now, connection, synthesis. And you're fluent in 5 languages you didn't even know you spoke, but you have to stop hiding them. Here's the uncomfortable part. The system isn't going to give you permission. There's no certification for a person who knows a suspicious amount about unrelated things. No university degree in cross-domain synthesis. No job posting for translator between disciplines we didn't know needed translating. You have to give yourself permission. You have to stop waiting for someone to tell you it's okay to be the shape you are. Because they won't. They can't. They don't have a category for you yet. The category is still being invented by people like you who stopped apologizing and started building. Your scattered interests aren't keeping you from your real work. They are your real work. The connections between them, that's where the value lives. That's where the insights hide that nobody else can find. Notice what happens when you talk to other M-shaped people. The conversation accelerates. Suddenly you're speaking in shorthand, making leaps, connecting dots. You don't have to explain why you're bringing up that random thing from that weird field. They already see where you're going. That's not because you finally found your people. That's because you found people running the same operating system. Different programs, same architecture. And when M-shaped people collaborate, that's when things get strange. Because you're not just adding perspectives, you're multiplying them. 5 specialists in a room give you 5 perspectives. 5 M-shaped people give you 25 perspectives, minimum, because each person brings their peaks and the valleys between them. The combinations explode. That's why your best ideas come from conversations that wander all over the place. You're not getting distracted. You're searching the solution space. Most people search 1 dimension. You search 7. Takes longer. Finds better answers. But you have to stop judging yourself by single-dimension metrics. Stop counting how many books you finished and start counting how many connections you made. Stop measuring depth by time spent and start measuring it by insight density. Stop comparing your scattered progress to someone else's linear climb. You're not climbing, you're mapping. Different task, different timeline, different definition of success. The M-shaped person's career looks insane from the outside. 3 years here, 2 years there, total pivot, another hard turn. People stop trying to guess what you're doing. But if you drew it from above, it makes perfect sense. You're not running in circles. You're running a search pattern. Each stop adds information. Each pivot follows a thread. You're building a map nobody else has, because nobody else could see enough territory to draw it. That's worth something. Actually, that's worth everything, but only if you stop trying to compress it into a resume bullet point. Your resume is a lie, by the way. Not because you're lying, because the format forces you to. It wants chronology, progression, a clear story. You've got a network, a web, a 3-dimensional structure that can't flatten without losing its shape. Every time you try to linearize yourself for an application, you lose the thing that makes you interesting. This is the part where I'm supposed to give you 5 steps to leverage your M-shaped nature. I'm not going to do that, because you don't need steps. You need permission to stop following steps. The steps were designed for T-shaped people. They assume 1 direction, 1 optimization path. You're not optimizing 1 variable. You're balancing 7. That takes something different. Something that looks inefficient, until suddenly it's the only thing that works. Here's what actually happens when you stop fighting your shape. First, the guilt lifts. Not immediately, but gradually, you stop feeling like you're failing at focus. Because you're not failing at focus. You're succeeding at something else. Second, the connections start appearing. Things you learned 5 years ago suddenly matter for what you're doing now. That random obsession, turns out it wasn't random. Your subconscious was building something your conscious mind couldn't see yet. Third, you start recognizing other M-shaped people. They've been around you the whole time. You just thought they were as confused as you. They're not confused. They're differently organized. And once you start talking to them, you realize you've been living in the wrong reference group, comparing yourself to people running different software. Fourth, you stop trying to explain yourself, not because you're hiding, because you realize explanation compresses. You just start doing the work, building the bridges, making the connections, and letting the results speak in ways words can't. The people who get it will get it. The people who don't weren't going to anyway. Fifth, everything gets easier. Not because the work gets simpler, because the friction drops. You stop fighting yourself. Stop trying to be someone you're not. And all that energy you were spending on compression, it goes into creation instead. Turns out you had plenty of energy the whole time. You were just using it to hold yourself in an unnatural shape. Let go of the shape. Watch what happens. Right now you're probably wondering if I'm describing you or just making you think I am. Here's how you know. How many tabs do you have open right now? Not just browser tabs. Mental tabs, projects, ideas, things you're curious about, threads you're following. If it's more than 3, and if you feel guilty about that number, you're M-shaped. If you've ever described yourself as interested in everything, that's not a character flaw. That's a character feature. If you've ever felt like you were wasting time learning something unrelated, you weren't wasting time. You were building bandwidth. If someone has ever told you, you should really focus on one thing, and you tried and it felt like dying, congratulations. You're running distributed software. The confusion you feel isn't because you have too many interests. It's because you have one interest connection and it keeps pointing you toward things that seem unrelated until they're not. Your brain is pattern matching across domains, building a reference library nobody asked for. That library is going to matter. It already matters. You just don't have a way to show people the catalog yet, but you will. Because here's the thing about the M-shaped future. It's not coming, it's here. The world already needs what you do. It just doesn't have job listings for it yet. The companies solving actual problems are already hiring for it. They just don't call it that. They say we need someone who can bridge this gap. They mean you. They say we need someone who can translate between these teams. They mean you. They say we need someone who can translate between these teams. They say we need someone who can see around corners. They mean you've been looking around corners your whole life. You just didn't know that was a skill. So stop trying to fit yourself into the shapes that already exist. Stop sanding down your edges to match the template. The template is obsolete. It was designed for a world that changed slowly. Your world changes fast. You change with it. That's not adaptation failure. That's adaptation success. And the more you try to fix yourself back into the old shape, the more you're going to hurt. Because you're not broken. You're just early. And early always looks like wrong, until suddenly it looks like obvious. You're not going to get there by becoming more focused, more disciplined, more like them. You're going to get there by becoming more like yourself, more scattered, more curious, more willing to follow threads that don't make sense yet. The sense comes later. It always does. But only if you follow the thread far enough to see where it leads. Most people give up at 2 turns. You need 7 turns to see the pattern. That's why you feel slow. You're not slow, you're thorough. That's why you feel unfocused. You're not unfocused, you're multifocal. That's why you feel confused. You're not confused, you're pre-clarity. And clarity comes from connection, not compression. So here's what you do with all this. Nothing, actually. You don't do anything with it. You just stop doing the thing you've been doing. Stop compressing. Stop apologizing. Stop trying to explain yourself to people who can't see what you see. And start building whatever connects your peaks, whatever lives in your valleys. Start making that real, not because someone gave you permission, because you stopped waiting for permission, not because you figured it all out, because you realize figuring it out is the work, not because you're finally focused, because you're finally distributed. The M-shaped future doesn't need you to become something else. It needs you to stop pretending you're something you're not. Your scattered interests aren't keeping you from the future. They are the future. And the future just figured out you've been here the whole time.